So I grew up around art in my home for a kind of an odd and interesting reason. Maybe not interesting, but at least odd. So my father was a refugee from Germany, and he, in the Second World War, he left Germany in the 30s and went to London in the 30s, ahead of most of his family. And there were in his family a number of art dealers. And one of them in particular dealt antiquities, Chinese, Etruscan, Near Eastern, Indian, Egyptian. And as a way during the 30s of getting his merchandise out of Germany, he would send it to my father in London and then in Oxford to sell. And occasionally, the form of a commission, as it were, was for my father to keep a piece that he particularly liked. And so he wound up with this collection of antiquities. And I think because they were in a kind of sweet spot between being good enough to be really beautiful and not good enough to be really valuable. And that was exactly where my father wanted to live in the art that he wanted to surround himself with. I mean, his purpose was to be surrounded by things he thought were really, really beautiful and that he wanted to be with. He wasn't investing in art. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it wasn't what he was doing, and some of them became valuable. And then as time went on, and these antiquities did become the kind of thing he couldn't continue to collect, he moved to collecting African art, which was quite cheap, and maybe not cheap anymore, but in the 60s and 70s, 80s, when he was collecting it, it was quite inexpensive, and modern European art as well. And this is what I grew up around. And why it means a lot to me was that it was exactly because it was in this sweet spot of being very attractive and wonderful to look at and contemplate, and yet not so beautiful that it really would be a crisis if something were dropped. It would be very sad if something were dropped, but it wouldn't be the end of the family fortune if something were dropped. And nothing got dropped. We had the opportunity to hold these pieces, to get close to them, to have them in our hands, under strict supervision, but to have them in our hands. And there's something different about that. There's just something completely different about that. And I remember that one time when I was 8 or 9, I said, Dad, what's the oldest thing you have? And he pointed out it's a 6,000-year-old bowl from the Middle East, a little pot. And he took it down and he put it in my hands. And I had this feeling that I know that all of you have had. All of a sudden, I'm connected to something from the dawn of civilization. It's a feeling that just looking at the bowl you never could have. And he would take us to museums, and so my father was an academic, an intellectual, and so most of the talk in my family was about what we thought about things, how we analyzed things, how we pulled them apart, how we used words. And we would go to museums. I remember the Centre Georges Pompidou and opened in, I guess, 1977, and we were visiting relatives in Paris at the time, and we went. And he took us through it. It was the highlight, other than seeing my aunt, of course, was the highlight of the visit. And there the questions were all, what do you see? What do you see? What do you like? And when something was particularly abstract, he would always say, well, isn't that powerful? And which I learned is, sometimes you say when you don't know what you're looking at, but it was a different way of talking, right? It was less analytical, and it was kind of the moment where we talked about what things meant to us in maybe a kind of a displaced way. Now, of course, art is about both what you think about it and what it means to you. I do think that as I come to know this college, that the particular opportunity that Williams presents is that it does allow our students a kind of access to art, to really be surrounded by it. That it's not a kind of discrete thing that's just in a class, it's not just a major that you can elect and, oh, there go the art history majors. But the kind of the infusion of art into the curriculum, into the lives of our students, helps them understand, helps them feel that art is something that is real, that it's immediate, and that it's integral to their own making sense of their own lives. And I think that's a special thing about Williams College. Now, many of our students move on into careers into the arts and culture fields. And of course, this is one of the great contributions of Williams College to the world, the famous Williams Art Mafia. But I think if you think about what the success of all of these Williams graduates means, it's that it fulfills this mission of making art for as many people as possible something that is, I think, simultaneously intellectually comprehensible and emotionally immediate. And not something that is usually or ever easy, that's never the point, but something that matters, and that matters to everybody. Now, our panelists are going to talk today, tonight, and you'll hear, I think, in a variety of ways how this is something that they've done in their work, and I'm looking forward very much to hearing from them tonight. But I can't close without pointing out that these kinds of things don't happen just by accident. We need the visionary leadership of those who support this work. And through the Fulkerson Fund, and Alan Fulkerson's philanthropy speaks to the very core of what Williams aspires to be. And it's essential to the mission of Williams, and I think it's wonderful that Alan so deeply understands this, that we foster the development of those critical pathways that connect our students to careers of leadership in the arts. So Alan, thank you.